Welcome to Scottish Watches podcast. We've got a returning guest, somebody that's not been on the show for a very long time, far too long. It is Andrew Morgan of Andrew Morgan Watch fame. Prior to that, we would have said maybe Watchfinder fame, but he struck out on his own a number of years ago, and we broke the news, I think, on one of our shows, and then we brought him on to tell us his story. Now, things have developed massively, not just with himself, not with his channel, not with his business, which has taken over the world in a very good way, but the watch world itself has changed. It's very topsy-turvy. The last couple of years have been a little bit tricky, so probably not the best time to strike out on your own. Well, this guy, he did it all, and in the worst possible times. So welcome back to the show, in better times for 2026 and beyond. Andrew Morgan, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm surprisingly very good actually, despite the fact that AI is going to destroy all of our jobs, the watch industry is in turmoil, the economic crisis is worsening, and I've got a bit of a headache. But otherwise, yeah, it's all very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. You don't have to tell me about your headaches. I wasn't going to ask you to partake in anything undercover. But it's brilliant to have you back on the show. We caught up very briefly over in Dubai Watch Week, because the event last year, I wasn't quite as mobile as perhaps I should have been, obviously with moving house and getting married and doing all that adult grown-up stuff that nobody really warned me about, how much time it really does take. But we did catch up in Dubai. I think it was a shuttle bus going to the event from the hotel, and we had a very brief chat, and I'd said to you at that point, we should probably do something, maybe let the dust settle. We were going to be talking about Dubai on the show, and we have milked it to death, although it was well worth being milked. Now we're in a new year. Now we've got lots of great opportunities ahead of us. LVMH Watch Week is just past, or it's just passing by the time we record this. Lots of fantastic releases that I thought maybe they would have kept until Watches and Wonders Week, which they haven't done. So fingers crossed they've got some good stuff for that. And before that, we've got British Watchmakers Day and various other things. So there's lots of opportunities to catch up in real life as always. And there's an opportunity for you to catch up with what we're up to in the show notes. That's where all the tech spec, the pictures, the links, all that good stuff will be for all the watches and associated stuff that we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about all kinds of things, maybe go a little bit behind the scenes of a world famous YouTuber, not me, him. So what was your New Year's resolutions?
I think my New Year's resolution more than anything was to take more me time, to enjoy some of the pleasures of what I get to do, because as you can imagine, the first couple of years in a business, you spend the whole time going, like, is this all going to fall apart? What's going on? And when you look back, you go, hang on a minute, that was incredible. Like, what an amazing year filled with really awesome experiences. And I want to try and make sure I live in the moment through those experiences as they happen, rather than recounting them all after they've happened and then being grateful for them. Towards the end of last year, myself, Richard Bentz and Nicholas Bowman-Scargill of Studio Underdog and Fears fame, oh yeah, boy!
Represent!
We all headed over to Manhattan to shoot some content for them for the launch of the Manhattan. And it was 2 very intense days of filming. We were up at 3 a.m. and we were back in bed at midnight, different beds, back in bed at midnight, and then up again doing the same thing the next day. And then it was so frenetic that actually jet lag had no opportunity to play any part. And we explored every which part of Manhattan to find these different, if you recall, it was like the different shots from different movies set in New York, all played out with the 2 guys.
I actually thought that was green screen.
No, that was real.
Not AI.
Not yet.
Think of the fortunes you could have saved.
At that point, we were still at Will Smith can't quite eat spaghetti very well. So that was all shot on location in those different places, and we had 2 days to go to all of those different places and get the shot. So even in Times Square, like, that is in camera. That is them running through Times Square at 5 a.m. in the morning to try and get it as quiet as possible. And I didn't really appreciate how much of an awesome experience that was until Christmas Day, when I thought, what did we do this year? And I thought, we did this. That was incredible. So that's my New Year's resolution, is to be more present and experience things as they happen.
That's something that you, listening, watching, should take on board, because it's something we tend not to do. We look back, or unfortunately, the modern generation, slightly younger than me, they seem to want to capture everything through a small screen and then never actually replay the memories instead of living for the moment. You've seen a million pictures or memes of people at a concert, And 20 years ago, they'd all have their hands in the air, and now they've all got their phones in the air, and that is not the way to do it. I did a similar thing, but it was forced upon me at the end of the year where we and Dave did a review. We went through 104 episodes since the prior review and catalogued everything that happened, and we tried to cram that into one final episode that then went out at the beginning of this year. And I was just looking at it thinking, well, in my head, I hadn't done a lot because I was busy with the house move and all the snagging reports and getting things done and flooring, yada yada. But still managed to cram in so much, went to so many events, missed a couple of key ones, but did manage to do a lot. And the fortunate position that we're in as media is we do get to travel and see the best of the best. We're given a bit of a red carpet treatment because brands obviously want to show us the latest and the greatest. They're not going to push us to the side. And finishing on a high in Dubai with the fantastic weather, it was a little bit too warm in certain days, great new location, and it put a big bow on the end of the year. But I know what you mean. And this year, I'm going to try and do a little bit more, slow things down a little bit, maybe enjoy the moment, and also say no to people. Instead of trying to please everybody or thinking, oh, I need to do this or I'm going to miss out or I might not get the opportunity again. No, no, no. We're a long time dead, so enjoy the moment. Live every day as it's your last.
Absolutely.
It's been a long time since you were last on. You got me involved, oh God almighty, last year you got me involved in something. The week I moved house and said, listen, Teddy Baldessar's doing this thing. He wants a little bit of Scottishness to do with like watches. Can you possibly record just a little snippet in your studio? And I thought, if I had a studio, I would do that. But my studio is currently in boxes in a garage. So what will I do? I had to go to a local car emporium, an auto accessory store called Halfords. People in the UK will know what I'm talking about. Had to buy a dash mount, had to rig up a microphone, my phone in there, parked miles away from all the noise that around about where my house was getting finished, getting built, and then record a little segment for you. So yeah, that is the last kind of interaction that we possibly had last year because it was just so busy. But bring us up to speed. How many years has that been now that you have flown the coop and you've been out on your own?
I think it is coming up to 2 years this February. I'm being vague because honestly I don't remember because it feels like an absolute lifetime ago. And so much stuff has happened in between that it feels like the years have advanced far more than they have because there's been so much more in them. And even you talking about that, the fun skit we did with Teddy, which I remember you did in your car, which was great. That feels like years ago, years and years and years ago. It's so strange. But good old Teddy, he's always a good laugh. I pitched that out because if I recall, I needed to ask your permission to represent, parts of the British Isles, if that's the correct term. I can't remember.
You didn't want to culturally appropriate Scottishisms.
Exactly, yeah. I can't do the accent, so that would have been no good. And I didn't have any Iron Brew to hand, and I knew just the guy to speak to. You've got some, haven't you, just off camera?
Always. You know how you get the break in case of an emergency? That's kind of what I've got in the corner, just in case. We always need the orange nectar around here. Now, that was fun. It was a good laugh, and it was I didn't want to let you down. And it's one of those, I couldn't say no to you because it was such a funny skit. And we need to put people in the picture because you explained earlier at the beginning of the show, working with Fears, working with Studio Underdog. A lot of folks still don't get what you do as an actual job and the separation because you're known for YouTube, you're known for the videos, the witty scripting that you put together, the way that you write things, because you used to be a novelist back in the day. And then obviously what you did with Man with a Hands, now you're the face on screen. But your business is explored lots of different avenues and you've done a lot of creative work for the likes of Moser, for all kinds of brands. Do you want to explain exactly what the day-to-day Andrew Morgan life is like?
Yeah, so it's separated out into like the audience facing media with me, so my YouTube channel, social media and stuff like that. And that is like, I would say that's the fun part, but it's all fun. That's the part where I get to sort of say what I want to say and lay down my thoughts as I see them about the industry, about watches and all of that good stuff. And that is that's supported by the ad revenue from Google. And I also have a lovely group of insane Patreons who are more enablers. I think they've cost me more money than they've made me in buying watches. Goodness sake. And that's that side. And then the side that I do with brands is working with brands that I find to be really interesting, that have amazing stories to tell, to help them tell those stories. So, like creative direction, media production, brand and product strategy. And so that means that a brand will come to me and say, like, we have this product coming up, or we want to tell this story about our brand or the way we manufacture product. And then it's my job to remove myself from the communication and speak like directly from the brand to the end viewer. So where the YouTube channel is my stupidness, if I'm featuring, if I'm doing a video like the Manhattan video, like it has to communicate the two guys from the two brands and make you feel like you're part of that journey. So we did last year a video for Moser, the manufacturer, which was like a fly on the wall office based drama about the service center and the manufacturing, like precision engineering AG and all of that good stuff. And you have to kind of separate yourself out of that and tell their story. But these brands are so interesting and have such good stories that it becomes epic fun. So you mentioned that I wrote novels in the past. Like my my passion is in storytelling, and it's one of the reasons I love watches so much, because there's storytelling in the mechanical side, the engineering, the development, the history, the people, the kind of like the cultural challenges and impacts, all of that. And some of these brands, like a Moser, like a Studio Underdog, they have such interesting product, an interesting mentality, an interesting story. And you think some of the early campaigns that Moser did before I had anything to do with any of it were just amazing. I just thought I want to be a part of enjoying telling those stories, not just being on the receiving end. So that's the other side, is getting to help those brands tell those stories and bringing them to life through the medium of not AI. Let's see how long that lasts.
I think that'll last a fair amount of time because AI hasn't got humour quite just yet. It's tried a couple of times, it hasn't really hit the mark. And that's where I think what you do and what we do, because we're very close to the bone with certain things, we've had a few rapped knuckles over the years, but we've never had the cease and desist or any legal threats. Well, not through the Watch podcast. We did talk about something before the show. Well, do you want to take us on a bit of a journey then? So, say, for example, the Studio Underdog video that I saw last year, not the Manhattan one, because that was pretty good, and the Mimosa one was really good as well. But the one that got me was when you had Justin Thor on the show.
Well, I can tell you, I had nothing to do with that video, I'm afraid. That video was produced by an agency that was working with Studio Underdog before I started working with Studio Underdog. It was a good video. It was a really good video.
It was it? I know. I thought it was yours.
No. Unfortunately, not. I would love to take credit for it. But what's demonstrative, I think, of that is that I'm not leaving a trace in the work that I do for them. So it's not like, oh, that's an Andrew one and that's not an Andrew one. Because if people think that's an Andrew video, then I have failed at my job. It should be a Studio Underdog video.
So the fact that I got that wrong is an accolade for you.
I think it's more an accolade for Studio Underdog in knowing what they want.
Right.
And I could very easily go to them and say, hey, I want to do this thing where I'm in it and this thing happens, and it's more like that's Andrew's type of humor rather than Studio Underdog's brand. But one of the reasons why Richard has been so successful is because he knows exactly what he should and shouldn't be doing. And so that video came together and was very representative of who they are and what they do. And so are the others, because it's them. And I'm in the very, very fortunate position where I get to pick and choose who I work with. So I can choose to work with brands that have a great story to tell, have real meat on the bone. So it's like being handed over the Star Wars universe instead of like the Kardashian universe.
Okay, well, maybe not tell us the backstory of the Thor one, because I quite like that one. Tell us the story of one of the other campaigns. Give us an example of you're approaching a brand or they come to you because they found out that you do this other thing. It's not just the man with the hands that's now got a face on YouTube. You meet a brand, it could be Studio Underdog, it could be Fears, it could be Moser. How do things move from ground floor to it appears on YouTube as a campaign?
So most brands, certainly in the beginning of the AMW journey, were aware of what I did because of my YouTube channel. And that's another reason why the YouTube channel is so beneficial, because it very publicly demonstrates that I can communicate with people about watches and people seem to enjoy it and respect it. And so usually a conversation will start with, can you make a video for us about our watches that we can publish? And I've done that for Moser because I thought it was a really interesting opportunity to tell stories about their watches. So they have a series of videos where I'm talking about individual products, but it's not something I want to do with everyone. In fact, it's probably not something I really want to do much of at all because I want to tell their stories. So that's the conversation open. I now have a link with this brand to talk to them. And at that point, I'll either say, I think you have something that I'd be really interested in working with, or I'll say, I don't think this brand is really something that I can help you with. And if it's the positive, then I'll say, yeah, like I could do those videos for you. But the thing is, actually, what's beneficial to you is not having me being the representative of your brand, but you being the representative of your brand and building longer term brand trust and recognition and authority, especially since what you do is so good. And so then the conversation evolves into more of that. Like, what can we do in terms of creative to help them with what they have coming up, what they're going to do next? And, quite rightly, there's usually a little bit of like, okay, that's not really what we were thinking of, but maybe we can try a small project and we'll work on a small project. And if it goes well, then they go, okay, that worked well. Let's do something else. Let's ramp it up a little bit. And the best scenario that I've had so far is in producing a campaign for a product launch for a brand that I really admired, and then having another client approach and say, we think you'd be a good fit for doing this campaign for us. This campaign that we have seen is something that we would like to work in the ballpark of. And I get to go, oh, I did that. That was me. But they don't know that because I'm not in it going, woo, I'm representing this brand, or I've left a trail of Andrewish breadcrumbs. It speaks to that brand and of that brand. So that was a really sweet moment when that happened, and I think is a nice little pat on the back to say that I'm doing the right things.
Did it also not feel a little bit like, maybe I should be getting a cover sleeve credit?
I don't think it really works like that. The whole point of these kinds of things is that it's the brand talking, and the brand's authority gets eroded if it's very obvious and public that this other person has done it for them. It feels like having a mouthpiece, or like instead of a person coming up and speaking to everyone, having their PR agent come along and say it for them. It feels a little bit like a separation from. I think the exception exists with Studio Underdog, and they're so gracious as to provide like the behind the scenes of the works published, so you can see that I'm involved with it. Is that Richard is a really strong collaborator, and he likes to bring different creative minds together under his umbrella of what he's doing, and so the awareness of me doing that becomes part of that conversation, if you like. But otherwise, I don't see the need to get in the way of it. If people want to know who made it, they can search and they can find out. But there's one thing it's a pet peeve of mine, is when a new creative campaign for a brand comes out, and then the first comment, like fire, 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 is the agency that made it. Like it irks me so much. It's like, let the brand have their thing. At least for 5 minutes.
That's a good point. The only reason I brought it up is I don't think you'd have liked to have spent a bit of time authoring a book and then not have your name at the top of it. And I just wondered. But no, you make a lot of good points there. We'll take us through the process then. The latest one with Studio Underdog and Fears, that obviously we should probably do the wrist check. We've already told people to check the show notes. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, that's in the description. If you listen to the podcast, it's in whichever app you're using. Click that, takes you to the website. You can find out all about what we're talking about here, see some pictures, since we are mainly an audio podcast. But wrist check time, what have you got on?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed because I had a realization last year that I'm a basic bitch. And I don't know if you know the story of my Submariner, but I had a Rolex Submariner as the first serious watch that I purchased.
Right.
To pat myself on the back for graduating as a civil engineer. That's not Iron Brew, is it? No, it's not. Shame.
Yeah, it was cheap. It was inexpensive in the January sales, and I'm Scottish, therefore.
So yeah, the Submariner was the watch that I purchased. It was the thing that you did when you graduated as an engineer or whatever. You bought yourself a Rolex. It was £2,000 at the time. I mean, the crazy thing to think back now is that my income has not increased by the same multiplier as the Submariner has. Like the watch was more affordable to me as a graduate than it is as a mere 40-year-old man. Nevertheless, I sold that watch because I had like aspirations of trying lots of different things, and I regretted it. And I refused to purchase it again because I refused to buy exactly the same thing for more money. So eventually, I put my name down on the list for a no-date Submariner from the AD, expecting nothing of it. And eventually, I think 6 months or so, I got the call. Yes. And I just love it. I love it as much as I did the first time around. And everyone will be like, "Oh, you're so boring." Yes, I am. But I'm aware of that fact. What are you wearing?
What am I wearing? Well, I'm flying the flag for everything AMW today. I don't have a funky t-shirt or a sweatshirt like you do, but I've got a rather interesting t-shirt that the wife got me a while back, and I thought, well, if I was ever going to wear this, it would be when you're on the show. So this is in your honour, as the wrist check is as well. So I'm wearing my Fears Studio Underdog. This isn't the Manhattan because I didn't go across to the States, but I did pick up the Mimosa, which was the final of the treble, the hat trick of collaboration watches between the two. And this one has got a dial that is a little bit, well, it's unlike anything I've seen before. And Rich has been talking to me behind the scenes about creating very unique dials or dial covers. And this one, it's to be reminiscent of the little bubbles that you get on top of champagne or other tipples, depending on what your choice would be. And it has got not a fume dial, but a gradient running from, in this light, it looks almost lime green at the top down to a dark blood orange at the bottom, but not in real life, not out in the open. And the other thing, the party trick with this one is at night time it comes alive because the full dial is illuminated and it's got a separate sapphire in the centre. So depending how you look at the watch, up and down, left and right, there's a bit of parallax to it. And with the skeletonized pipette hands that are obviously reminiscent of everything that Fears does and the K shape, it's just an absolute win. A little bit smaller than I would usually wear, but it's fantastic, and I have worn it multiple times, even though a little bit like you, I am a basic bitch, and I rotate through about 3 different watches generally, unless a brand sends something in for review and then I'm forced to wear it. But there's another watch I've got here that I'm going to talk about very briefly because this was released over the weekend. As this episode comes out a couple of days ago for Burns Night here in Scotland, this watch came out and it's a collaboration with Wallace Allen in Air and Nevada Grenchen. And it's a fantastic little number. There's limited amounts left, I believe. I think it's around about 30 left by the time we record this. So if you like the look of this, check the show notes. There'll be more information on it. Go grab it because we're not doing a Burns Night special. This isn't anything to do with us apart from the fact the guys that make it are friends of ours. So check it out. If you like it, grab it. Lots of cool things. All the details will be in the show notes. Well, that's the wrist checks done. And behind the scenes, because we like to talk about behind the scenes stuff, especially when Andrew's here, I was saying, my cameras aren't quite as good as what you're using. And Andrew says, "Oh, we invested in some stuff last year. So tell us, what do you invest in?"
So I am a bit of a kit whore, I suppose, in the sense that I feel as confident as my kit can make me feel. So I typically shot with Blackmagic cameras to get all of that lovely dynamic range and the bit depths in the RAWs and all the rest of it. And I was shooting with not the Ursa Mini, but the pocket camera. And it's a fantastic camera. The ergonomics of that camera actually make it quite a challenging camera to use in certain environments.
Did we not talk about this before? And we came up with the idea it looks like a Sega Game Gear.
Yes, it does. That's right, yeah. And you kind of think, well, it's like a DSLR, so I can hold it and use it. But actually, by the time you put a monitor on top of it and a top handle and whatever you need, it actually becomes kind of bulky and a bit annoying. So I've always had aspiration to buy into like Arri or Red or anything like that, because of course they are like just because it feels good. I don't know. And the Red Komodo, Nikon had just purchased Red, and they just slashed the prices, presumably in competition with Blackmagic. Is he going to put this red hat? Oh yeah, there we go. That's fresh out the box. You've not even cracked the peak yet.
Guess who was at a Nikon roadshow asking stupid questions about Nikon cameras?
But they bought Red. And because the complaint with Red has always been they're really expensive and they're very unreliable. And Nikon have purchased them, and that they've reduced the price. And now it's a sensible, reasonable company with decent warranties and reliability.
Do you know how that happened?
How they ended up purchasing it? No, I've got no idea. I assume they went, is it for sale? I'll buy it.
No, they didn't do that at all. No. What happened was, this is a quick interlude away from the watch content, so bear with me. It's quite a cool story, bro. Red owns patents for having internal RAW recording in camera without running external to an external recorder, which is a pretty cool thing. And they are quite litigious, or were quite litigious with this, and lots of people gave it a shot and got sued. Nikon gave it a shot and got sued, but turned around and said, your patents ain't worth it. And Red said, yes, they are. And then Nikon said, actually, f you guys, we're just going to buy you. And that's what happened. So it was to get rid of a patent dispute.
That's true power, isn't it? Well, you can't sue us because we own you. So I bought a Red Komodo, and do you know what? I initially bought it thinking I just want a camera that looks more professional than the camera that I currently have. And there is a logic to that. When you rock up on set with something that looks like a toy, you don't look as professional. But actually, it turns out the camera is really, really... hang on, I'm just going to wait for my dog to stop barking.
Well, that's true, because in a prior life, I was a wedding photographer, videographer, and I had to have the stupid shoulder mount camera, because if I turned up with a DSLR or mirrorless, which worked better, had better dynamic range, better quality, people would kind of look and tilt their heads a little bit, and size does matter in a professional industry like that.
And so it would actually turns out that the camera is so much more usable in so many different ways. Like the tools that it has in terms of helping you keep focus, not as autofocus, but like as manual focus, like peaking and things like that. The ability to build it up. So a handle on the top and a monitor on the top of that and a lens and a battery, it actually becomes a smaller, more compact solution. So I purchased myself a very bargainous set of Canon CNE lenses, prime lenses, which are robust and look very, very nice. And actually, I purchased these in advance for the Manhattan trip for Studio Underdog and Fears. And one of the reasons that we were able to capture the shots that we did was because it was so small, so compact, and so like discreet that, so using, I don't know if you're familiar with SAC, but it's like this company that makes these, it's like a saddle that you wear around your body with a little padded thing that you can rest the camera on. So it's like you don't have to put the camera on sticks and be really obvious. You can just sort of hold it there at different heights, and it gives you some stability, enough that you can dial out in post. And it meant that we were able to just capture this stuff like really, really leanly, in and out, get the shot, get back out again without anyone being any the wiser. Because when you have lots of kit and you've got your big matte box on the front and your follow focus and sticks, then people go, hang on a minute, what are you up to?
But you did have all the appropriate permits in order.
Well, when you're at the size that we are, you don't need those permits. The permits generally tend to be with regards to shooting on private property, obviously, if it's like a park that's not necessarily public land, but mostly if you're bringing in lots of kit and causing disruption. So that's when permit places, or when local authorities really want you to get involved with that stuff. If you're blocking a footpath, or if you have lorries that are parked up in the road, or you're generally causing what could be potential harm to the average person on the street.
My favourite didn't get a permit story was when they were making the French Connection movie, and they didn't get a permit, and they just drove like absolute lunatics through the traffic, hitting other people's cars and then paying them out afterwards.
So that's the ask for forgiveness rather than permission route, isn't it?
That's the one. AI companies, take note if you haven't already. So you got this new camera system. It was everything you ever dreamed of. There was no problems. It didn't hang, lose your footage, etc., etc. Has it changed your world?
It has. And one of the other reasons it's changed my world is because you can remote to an iPad with it. So when it's in an awkward position when you're shooting watches and you can't get to the physical camera body, you can control it and monitor it just from an iPad. You don't need to be running SDI cables or anything like that from it, which serves as a really good director's monitor as well, or client monitor, when you've got the camera in an awkward position, or you just want the client to be able to see what you're framing up on too. And it just turned out to be great. And the price that they knocked it down to, I think, unless I'm mistaken, the Komodo is now all gone and it's replaced with the Komodo X, which is $6-7 grand. The price of this thing, it was a couple of grand, and I was just like, I cannot not buy this thing. And it's just been fantastic. And the image quality out of it, the ability to manipulate it, is better than the Blackmagic. It's just a lovely, lovely thing to work with. And it speaks to the same sort of brain tickling that watches do. When you look at a lovely Breguet and go, it's just a nice thing. It's just a nice object to be able to hold and shoot with. And the end result just speaks for itself, I think.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Not good to know because now I'm going to be looking at red quality products. But yeah, I've got enough Nikon. I mean, I've got my Z9, which was incredibly expensive. I think that was about 5-6 grand when I bought that, just body alone. I'm running in the studio here. It used to be the Z9 was my main camera, but I changed it out for the smaller Z6 III, which shares the same sensor with the red stroke Nikon Z Cinema XR, I think it is, or ZR. And then I've got a ZF over here running, and I've got a Panasonic doing the downway shooting, but we'll not talk about that too much. The good old GH5 hasn't hit retirement just yet. But enough of the camera talk. Let's talk more about watches. So, things have changed last couple of years. It's a different landscape from when you dipped your foot in the pool alone, without the stabilizers, nothing like that. How have you seen things changing?
So this is really interesting, I think, and it's a topic that absolutely fascinates me. The evolution of the watch industry and specifically consumer behavior since COVID has, in some cases, really improved for brands, and in other cases, really fallen flat on its face. So the big change that I have seen, and the reason why for me 2025 felt no different to previous years for what I'm doing, is that brands that do a really good job of brand, by which I mean like the reason for doing what they do, the people behind it and their passion about it, their ability to communicate that and consolidate that without being all over the place. By all over the place, I mean Omega having 160 different variations of the Speedmaster or whatever, alongside, I think, oh man, the Omega thing is a whole thing. That's just it. That's the opposite of what.
Go on, listen, this is a therapy session. You're in a safe place, Andrew. Tell us your story about Omega and why you don't like this.
So Omega make great products. The watches are fantastic, but as a brand, I'm confused by them, and I think many people are confused by them. Not just because of the sheer amount of near as damn it variations that they have, which makes it very difficult to decide which one you actually want, but I'm a simple person. When I see something, I like to be able to understand it without having to invest too much brain power. And when I see Omega, on the one hand, I see the Moonwatch Professional, hand wound, almost an identical replica to the watch that existed in the 50s and 60s. And there's a version of that with a 321 and a version of that with a 3861. And I'm like, why do they both exist at the same time? Very close. But then on the other end, you've got the recently released Planet Ocean with really straight, crisp lugs. Again, it's actually a really nice watch. But I don't know how a brand can be both the modern interpretation of itself and also the historical throwback. It starts to muddy the waters and become confusing. And then you look at the price increases that they're sneaking in as well. So you have the Seamaster, where it had, like the standard Bond style Seamaster with a date. They remove the date. They have them both for sale at the same time. The one without the date is more expensive.
Porsche thinking. We'll take the back seats out. We'll take away all the electronics. We'll charge you more.
Yeah, but without the 4-litre or whatever it is they have now, naturally aspirated, beautiful engine. It's just the same damn. They've just gone Carrera S, but no back seats. More money. Whereas Porsche, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have the 911T.
Yeah.
A more affordable version. They pulled stuff out of it and let people who didn't have the full whack of cash buy into something a little cheaper. Omega's doing it the other way around. No fancy engine, no carbon fiber. The Seamaster collection in and of itself. Why is it the Seamaster Railmaster? What sense does that make? In 1957, they released 3 watches: the Speedmaster, the Seamaster, and the Railmaster. And why is there not a Seamaster Speedmaster by that logic? Or a Speedmaster Rail? I just don't know what they're doing. So it speaks to a lack of confidence in who they are and what they want to be. If you compare them to Rolex, Rolex is like, this is who we are. You can see our DNA very clearly transposed up and down the collection from the most basic Oyster Perpetual, which is like the most refined way to express who Rolex is as a creator of high quality and high accuracy sports watches, all the way up to Sky Dweller, Daytona, and all of those kinds of things that are more complicated. And Rolex has this process of saying basically, do you want a Rolex? These all look like Rolexes. What do you want to use it for? Do you just want to tell the time? Oyster Perpetual. Do you want to dive with it? Dive watch. Do you want to time stuff with it? Chronograph. Do you want to you a pilot or a traveler, then you have a GMT.
Is that for telling the time in your caravan?
And so you are always progressing forwards in the decision-making process in buying a Rolex. What metal do you want it in now? What strap would you like it in? Great, that's the watch that you want. And you don't go, oh, actually, I'm going to go back up and around and down again. With Omega, wall of product. And it's all kind of the same and you're not really sure. And they can't create that flow because how do you decide between the Railmaster and the Seamaster 300 throwback model? They're kind of the same. Or the Aquaterra, like they're all kind of the same, but not. There's no clear differentiation. And what really highlights the problem with that, I think, is if you look at Rolex and you look at the Air King, great watch in isolation, kind of hard to place in the map of who Rolex is. You're like, the Explorer is the rugged version of the Oyster Perpetual for explorers. You've got the Submariners for diving with. The GMT is for people who travel. What's the Air King all about? When you rewind back in time, you realize that the Air King was a version of the Oyster Perpetual that Rolex released to capitalize on the RAF's success in World War II. They're like, good old boys, plucky airline pilots will release their Air King, and they released a whole bunch of other Air Tiger and other names. And they were like the commemorative towel to celebrate the win of World War II. It was like just capitalization of a commercial opportunity. And so that's why it feels like it doesn't quite fit in the collection, because it was shoehorned in there. And that's like one little tiny wrinkle. Whereas Omega is like a piece of crepe paper that's been balled up and set on fire. Like, it's just too hard to consolidate as an overall brand. And the problem is that you could say, well, they could just decide who they are and then get rid of everything else. So if they're a heritage throwback brand and they just make watches like the Moonwatch Professional and a Seamaster in the same kind of likeness as the 1957 version or whatever, then they are immediately going to get rid of short-term commercial success. They'll get rid of watches that will sell. And I'm sure you've seen recently that Antoine Pin has departed from Tag Heuer. I don't know if they asked him to leave or if he chose to leave, but I can imagine that, again, you have a brand here that has the F1, the kind of the plasticky, fantasticky, colourful F1 at one end, and at the other end, you have Carrera and Monaco, like modern-looking, architectural, split-second, 120 grand. What are these two watches doing in this? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I can imagine that Antoine's departure had something to do with a disagreement over where the brand should be focusing and what it should be doing. So the point of all that is that the brands that do a really good job of understanding who they are, who don't overstep the boundaries of their brand playground, so to speak, they're the ones that have continued to do a really good job. And as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones that tell really good stories that I want to be telling stories for. So they have not seen any kind of real interference over the last few years. Whereas brands that make things because they just make things, or brands that make things that are supposed to be a value for a specification, for example, those brands are slowly finding themselves succumbing to like chasing their tail. There's a spiral race to the bottom, because ultimately other brands will make the same thing for slightly cheaper, and collectors have been buying lots of these cheap watches and realizing ultimately they have a watch box full of stuff that doesn't give them the warm and fuzzy feeling that a good brand does. So the inverse of that, again, really is that smaller independent brands as well that are led by an interesting figurehead who has like a direction and a purpose and a motivation for what they're doing, those brands are doing really, really well, whether they're affordable or they're expensive. So, for example, a brand that I think is doing absolutely fantastic in its first few years of operation is Anoma. Anoma, and Matteo, the guy behind Anoma, has a solid understanding of what it is they're trying to do, what is Anoma and what isn't Anoma. And it feels incredibly professional, incredibly slick as a result. And so people are drawn to it because they feel a connection to it, because they can understand it. Probably the best example of this in action, whether people like the brand or the person or not, is FP Journe. For 25 years, he's been making watches that look like FP Journes, that are designed around this sort of pocket watch revival mentality, that have an identity and a purpose for being that really resonates with people. And it's like consistent, it's all very efficiently designed in terms of how each one looks compared to the other, to the point where 20 years of history have been built up with that same point of view. And so it resonates with people. I think I answered your question.
You did. You gave a good answer. I like that answer. And I'm thinking of lots of brands that have done it. Vacheron have never released a budget-friendly version of whatever. Moser haven't done that. Omega, you're right. The Moonswatch collaboration, it was a good thing and a bad thing. Generally, it's been a good thing. We can all agree on that because it reinvigorated interest in wristwatches. So that's decent. But I know what you mean. But I am playing devil's advocate a little bit, because way back at the beginning of my journey into watches, before the podcast as a collector, which is coming up for nearly its decade anniversary, 2017, Omega were releasing a special edition, a limited edition, a special edition of the Speedmaster almost monthly. It was Ultraman this, it was something else, we're changing the movement, we're doing this, we're doing that. They've calmed down a lot on that. But the one that took me out of left field, it rightly so, is the new Planet Ocean. And we saw the pictures of it, we talked about it on the show, and we were trying to figure out where the direction was going, because you didn't have the slab-sided watches in recent history. The previous Planet Ocean was very curved, it was quite like a Daytona, that style of watch, and it just totally changed. It reminded us maybe of some of the Grand Seikos, maybe the Godzilla, it reminded us of the Zenith Defy range. It just didn't fit properly. When we went to the new launch of the Omega Boutique in Scotland, which was fantastic, having the old version and the new version beside each other, you couldn't see a link. There was no line, no parallels could be drawn between the two. And it was polarising, seeing people that were there invited to this launch event, looking at the new watch and being repelled or absolutely loving it. So it was quite a divisive subject. Another divisive subject is YouTube, where you operate. That is your playground. And you'd said to me when we caught up, as I mentioned, in Dubai, that things have really changed. So what's been going on in the YouTube sphere?
So YouTube is really being affected by much of the social media algorithm recommendation stuff that's happening across the platform. If we look at prior to COVID, which is now quite a while ago,
7 years this year.
yeah, YouTube, its goal was to take niche content and show it to niche audiences, which is really good. So the people who want to see stuff get to see it. And typically as well, if you wanted to see more of a creator's work, you would subscribe, because then the next time you logged into YouTube, your feed would show all of the latest videos that have been produced by the people you're subscribed to. Now, of course, there was a recommendation engine involved, which was if you watched a video from someone you were subscribed to, it might recommend other similar videos from similar creators that you might also like, and you might choose to watch one of those and subscribe to them as well. But what it meant was, because people were subscribed to channels didn't always have to swing for the fences when it came to the subject matter. So you could, on one hand, do a video where it's like, oh my goodness, 10 watches that absolutely destroy Rolex. And that video would get shown to your subscribers. And if your subscribers all clicked on it and watched it to the end, YouTube would go, I might show this to some other people as well at the ends of videos they watched. And that video could then get momentum and become viral. And, routinely see videos go to 500,000 or 1 million views with that. But it also meant back in that time that if you produced a video that was like, hey, I found this niche watch, most of you won't like it, but I think it's cool, that video would still be shown to all of your subscribers, and they could choose to watch it or not. And if they didn't watch it, then, well, it meant that that video wouldn't then get shown to broader audiences. But you would still get eyes on the opportunity to be shown to all of your subscribers. When COVID happened and everything went upside down overnight, YouTube suddenly turned into a platform to keep kids at home entertained. And so kids were just there like, ha! And so the recommendation engine had to get very good at just playing the next thing, at recommending at all points, what do we think you are going to want to watch the most? And what that meant was the repositioning of the subscription feed from the homepage to a separate tab, and the homepage becoming just pure recommendation. And anyone who so happens to watch YouTube will know that in recent years, they're probably thinking, why is it showing me this? Or why does it keep showing me that, even though I don't want to watch it? Why is it not showing me things I'm subscribed to? Why, just because I chose not to click on a video that I'm subscribed to once, did it never show it to me again? Well, it's all based now on trying to find videos that have the broadest possible opportunity. And so the problem for niche creators is that if you create a video that previously would have been shown to all your subscribers, but they might not have all clicked on it, no one's looking at their subscription feed anymore. What happens is the video goes out, YouTube shows it to a couple of your subscribers, and if they all click on it, it's like, oh, great. I'll show it to some more of your subscribers. And if they all click on it and watch it, great. Eventually, it might get momentum to be shown to new people as well. But if the first few subscribers, if only 40% of them click on it and watch it, then YouTube goes, nah, I probably won't show it to your other subscribers either. And so your subscribers who would like to watch that niche video about a niche watch don't even get to see the video exists at all. So the views that you could get from people who would like to watch it just don't happen. And so what it incentivizes you to do is always swing for the fences. Because if you want subscriber number 50,000 to see the video, you need to be aiming for the broad audience beyond. Otherwise, they'll never get to see it. And that's where you get this, it's like a homogenization of the types of content. So, for example, I follow a YouTuber who makes knives, and he makes really, really high quality knives. He forges the Damascus steel and carves the handles and does all this sort of stuff. If he makes a really nice knife, he gets this many views. If he makes a knife out of old PlayStation 5s that he compressed with a steamroller, he gets millions of views. And the gap between the two has been slowly moving further and further apart. So where I was used to in the past, getting similar numbers of views normally, and then maybe one every now and then would pop off. Now, like the ones that don't do well do really badly, and the ones that do well can do really, really well. And it just means that you're going to see creators making the same types of content, not really taking any risks because they're just responding to what YouTube is making successful or not.
You're right. Sensationalism sells. It always has done. Tabloids made an industry out of it, and it's the same in the creator space on YouTube. And I think the big ones that have always stood out in recent memory are the fake watch comparisons. They would always draw massive view counts because it's a little bit dodgy. People want to see and they want to maybe test themselves. But when you do other stuff, we've done fantastic coverage of different events, different releases, different things. Sometimes it hits the mark, sometimes it doesn't. And there is no rhyme or reason. I remember we had a video hit 200,000 views, and I said to Dave, what was special about this? What was in it? But then again, it doesn't matter what was in it because somebody had to click it to see what was in it. So it's very difficult to get your head round the full thing. And we just reserved and pulled back and said, listen, we're going to continue doing the podcast, which has been massively successful in an audio format. Put it in video, look at our ugly mugs, occasionally get some desk shots of the watches and stuff over the top, thanks to Gavin Co behind the scenes. And we're just going to push that out. And it doesn't matter if it gets 5,000, it doesn't matter if it's 20,000, 50,000 or whatever. And every week it's completely different. We're not going to succumb to the algorithm. I think that's the big point. And I remember last year, there was a problem that happened where people's view counts, big channels, Linus Tech Tips, etc., their view count just cratered for no apparent reason. Did anyone ever find out what happened there?
No, not specifically, but it's the general consensus that it's all optimization of the recommendation algorithm. And the problem that I have with it is that every optimization is always about what is going to bring the broadest possible success. So it's a bit like Netflix or whoever only investing in films that they think will blow the box office, or studios only making Avengers films because they'll make billions, and never investing in kind of smaller indie interesting films that could do really well and actually will make a profit, even though that profit is small. And here's where it breaks, I think, because a broad audience is interested to see a video where PlayStation 5s are squashed with a steamroller and made into knives because it's ridiculous, not because they're interested in knife making, which then decentivizes that creator to make nice videos about knives being made that the niche audience likes. And so actually the niche audience stops watching YouTube for that kind of content. So the long-term net downside of that is actually, so people who watch videos about watches, there is a contingent of those people who have a good amount of money. They are great candidates for advertising on YouTube. If you're going to make it all the lowest common denominator, i.e. stuff that is going to entertain kids, kids don't got no money to spend on anything. So the advertising value becomes much, much lower. So I don't really understand why YouTube is making this push. And there's this real hope from creators that the focus of the recommendation engine from niche creators to niche audiences will become better focused. Because otherwise, YouTube will just lose its audience. It'll just become a minefield of AI slop watched by children and no one else.
We could invent a term for this. How does enshittification sound?
Oh, did you come up with that all by yourself?
Oh, no, I didn't. Maybe Cory Doctorow came up with that one a while back, but that is very true. And I recently watched a video about car YouTubers that are paying off the supercars that they have on finance with the revenue generated through YouTube, and the view counts are dropping and diminishing, and the AdSense, the money they make from YouTube that's paid for the adverts that are displayed, is starting to drop, and a lot of them are absolutely screwed. Bankruptcy is just round the corner. It's a terrible place to be in, but it's when you put all your eggs in the one basket. And one of the worries I had behind the scenes when you broke out on your own and you were doing your own YouTube stuff, and it was difficult to recapture what you'd done at Watchfinder because they had an early first mover advantage almost with the subscriber count, the view count, but you managed it. And then you explained, no. The business model is to help bring my creative talent to promote a brand's story. Exactly what you explained in this show. And I thought, well, that's fine then. Because if the Adpocalypse 2.0 came along, which it did last year, then you'll be fine. And I'm glad to see you are fine. But we're nearly at the end of the show. We're almost overrunning. I'm going to have to do some nips and tucks behind the scenes with the editing. What's happening in 2026? What are your plans?
Well, take it as it comes. We are booked out with work until April, and some stuff a little bit beyond that, which is really fantastic. Sometimes it's short-term reactions to things. Quick, get on a plane and come here. We've got to do a campaign. Sometimes it's longer-term planning. Obviously, I can't share too much about the work that we are working on. But there are some interesting things that will be coming out. Interesting projects that we're working on. All I can say is that I can talk around it as long as you like, but I'm excited for it, and hopefully other people will be too. And most of it, people may not even realize that I've had any involvement with, and that's fine, as long as it makes the watch space a more interesting and vibrant place.
You are a positive addition to the space. So yeah, take that as it may. But it's been fantastic you having me back on the show. It's been far too long. We say this with a lot of guests, a lot of our friends who are in the same ecosystem as we are. With 104 episodes a year, it's just not enough for us to bring everybody back on with regularity. But we will do, because you've got a lot of cool things, lots of irons in the fire. You've come through that baptism of fire the first 2 years in business, as you rightly mentioned. That is the hardest, the trickiest, the one where you have to invest the time, the energy and the effort for little reward, because it's all going back into the business. And how many businesses fail in their first year to 2 years? I think it's 80% plus too, so fantastic work on your part. If you want to check out what we're up to, follow us, obviously, on Instagram at Scottish Watches, our website, scottishwatches.co.uk, and YouTube, because that's where we're trying to push out more content. We're terrible for shorts, we're terrible for repurposing, we're going to do better. I'm going to do better this year. That is my promise to everybody out there. And it means a little bit more work for Gav, a lot more work for myself. But people want to get in touch with you. Maybe they're a brand that is liking what you do behind the scenes. They want to have your creativity and they want something after April this year. How would they get in touch with you?
Oh, visit andrewmorganwatches.com and there's a lovely little form you can fill out. It also has like a bit of a CV of the work that we've done if you're interested in perusing that too. Thank you.
I think people listening and watching to this maybe want to see exactly what you have had your little hands involved in, so everybody should go and have a look at that. And obviously you've got your YouTube channel. All the details will be in our show notes, and that is pretty much it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again soon.
Thank you so much.